On this opening show for the Informed Performance podcast, I've got Ivi Casagrande. Ivi is the head of strength and conditioning for the Orlando Pride ladies professional football team, or soccer, depending on where you're from. In this conversation, Ivi is really open about her strategies and methods for how she trains the players at Orlando Pride, and I hope you enjoy this first episode. Just want to say a big thank you to Tim Tam, a brand that makes vibration or percussion-based recovery products, who have really kindly sponsored the launch of this podcast. They are responsible for the power massager and more recently the pulse massager, and both are great examples of tools that you can use for soft tissue recovery, especially when you're on the road. If you would like to get your hands on a free power massager, then we're actually running a competition with Tim Tam. All you have to do is subscribe to this podcast on iTunes and follow us on Instagram at Inform Performance. Send us a screenshot that you've subscribed to the DMs of the Inform Performance Instagram page. Then in a few weeks, we'll pick a subscriber at random to win the Tim Tam massager. And in the meantime, check out Tim Tam's Instagram page at Tim Tam Recovery. So Ivi, welcome and thank you for giving up your time coming on the show. Can you just outline what you do and also what your background is?
Yes, thank you so much for inviting me to this podcast. Really glad to be here. And so I'm currently the strength conditioning coach for Orlando Pride, which is the professional women's soccer team here in Orlando for the NWSL, which is the American League professional league here. I actually arrived here 2 months ago, so fairly new to the position. Before that, I was director of sports performance for a youth athletic training facility in Michigan. I was there for about a year and a half, where I was pretty much creating programs, testing for youth athletes. So quite a different role here at Orlando.
A big change. And what does a typical week look like for you at the moment?
So for us, we started season a month ago in March. So I arrived pretty much about a month in that they were in preseason. So I arrived right at the last week of preseason. So right now we are already in season. So we have about 1 week, one game a week. So on Saturday or Sunday we have a game. So a lot of away games, not too many home games, but normally on Monday, so pretty much Mondays, if we have a game on Sunday, we normally have a day off on Monday. And then training Tuesday, Wednesday, sometimes Thursday and Friday, and then games in the weekend. So for me, with this new role this season, I think is going to be pretty much kind of understanding the players, getting to know the players, getting to know everything, the league, protocols and all that, and kind of noting everything, putting everything down. So next season I'll be ready to go in terms of really implementing what I want to implement. But I'm already implementing small things that I've been seeing, and I'm really big on the microdose, getting really good quality stuff every day for, a small amount of time. In the long term, that's going to create some good improvements in the team. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm just pretty much getting to know the team and trying to improve overall performance.
Sure. And is there other people in your department with you, or are you the main coach?
Yeah. So we have myself as the head strength and conditioning coach for the Pride. And then we have one athletic trainer, and then, but with the performance side, that's me that kind of does all the strength conditioning. Our assistant coach, he was a former sports scientist, so it's really good to have him around because we can really work together. And I learn a lot from him, and we kind of get together, and I get his perspective and he gets my perspective. So that really helps because the way we program the sessions has his background and my background too. So it's been really good to have him around.
And is he on the kind of playing side, the technical side, or is he a strength and conditioning coach as
He's
well?
on the technical side. He's on the technical side.
Okay.
Yeah, but with his sports science background, we always have good conversations and kind of guide us to set up the sessions. So it's pretty good.
That's a pretty refreshing understanding for your colleagues to have.
Oh my gosh,
on that
yes.
side of it.
Yes, I'm pretty lucky with the coaching staff, and our athletic training is great. We have really good communication between us, and I think the good thing, especially with the return to play, our athletic trainer and I, we've been working really well together when in determining what are the programs that each player needs to have once they are clear to play. So that way I can really take care of that return to play protocols after they're cleared. So we really manage the loads and make sure they are progressing slowly for full return to play, so we don't have any re-injuries.
And do you and the AT have an assessment profile that you run the players through for you to determine how their GM programs look, or are you given that from anybody else?
Yeah, so pretty much, as I said right now, because I arrive a little later in the process, so for me it's more what I can see in daily in terms of pretty much feedback from the players, and I'm literally getting to know them every single day at different things that can really help them, things that really help them out, some exercise that really don't make a difference for them. And in terms of loads, like you have players that accept loads a little bit better than others. So we put everything down when we meet every day and say, okay, what can we do to make those players better in the long term? So I actually just started. I did a questionnaire that I sent to all our players. It's pretty much to get to know them in terms of their mobility, their tightness, their soreness, which for me was a great form of feedback. So I have all the forms in front of me, and I can tie it up for the things that I see when they go to the gym, when they are doing mechanics, and they're running mechanics and stuff. So my idea is to create a more personalized program for all of them. Their own prehab programs specific for that player, so that way they can take care of their bodies every day. They have their own way of access those programs, and I can see if they get completed or not. So that way it's really gonna affect them long term in terms of the movement quality, because we've been seeing some little things that can really affect them in terms of their health. Their muscles and all soft tissue injuries that we can prevent just based on just getting some good quality movement exercise correctives to their daily routine. So that's something that we just started doing it, and it's going to be implemented in the next few days, and hopefully that's going to help them, getting some tools in their toolbox of things that they can really work on their own, because I mean they're just with us for the morning, and then they leave the club. So if we can kind of educate them on those little things, and I think they will be good.
And is there a certain amount of training or kind of preparation that they do outside of training with you? Are they expected to do some stuff in their own time?
Yeah, so pretty much it's up to them in terms of if they want, I don't know, use me as a day off, or use me to. I mean, I'm there all day, so I always tell them, look for me, look for any 20 minutes extra after training that you need to get some quality movement stuff done, bungee work, and we can all, get better at that. So they're slowly are getting used to that, and they're being really proactive, and which is really good. And I think the biggest thing, and that's something that I've been noticing. I've always I worked with professional before, but I was an intern, so I didn't get to spend too much in depth with them. But stuff that we think, like when I came here, I had the idea of they're professionals, they know what they're doing, but you really once you're in, you really understand how much education they need, and in terms of just some little things that they probably nobody told them before, and that can help them in the long term. So it's been really good to see how much they care about it, and they come and they ask questions, and once they know the answers, and once they keep asking questions, and once they know why they're doing it, then their buy-in is like it's amazing. So that's what kind of like my goal is going forward. Keep educating them, because I think that's the key. When I was a player, I remember I wanted to get those answers. Like why am I doing this? And sometimes I was not given those answers, and it's frustrating. And you don't get too much to buy in if you don't know, if you don't have like a context. So a lot of the things when I tell them is just really educating them. Say this is why you need big toe mobility. Why you need to spend some time barefoot every now and then. So they've been really open to all those things, which it makes my job way easier.
And were you able to implement those things quite quickly, or did it take you time to build up those relationships and get the trust from the players?
It takes time. Yeah, it takes time because they need to know who you are. They need to know to see that you know what you're talking about. So I didn't force anything, because I know it's one of those things that you kind of you talk to them and put that in their ears, and then once they do it, they remember I told them, and they're like, oh, that actually helped me out. That helped me. The exercise really made me feel a little bit better. So they ask for more. So that way it starts opening up. The relationships they form, and it's a process. It's a process, and you just got to be patient, and you just got to kind of take it slowly and allow them to trust you. So I made sure I took that slow, because it's I don't know how many coaches they had through their life. So it's all that thing that like a bunch of coaches told me that, and now I don't know who do I listen to. So it's literally what makes them feel better. So maybe one thing that I make them do, like an exercise, maybe work fantastic, like really make work for them. But some of the other ones, like I'm not sure about it, which is fine. So that's the process of getting to know the players and seeing who really takes the information in and use it, or it's so it's really a long-term process.
And for professional sport, you've got quite a modest setup in terms of at least a strength and conditioning department. So I can see why having better player relations is key for that, to get them on side and then bought in. Are you able to kind of collect data and do athlete monitoring as well, or is that overstretching your capabilities with your staffing numbers?
No, I actually, so we do have GPS and heart rate, so I do collect that, and I monitor that live. Sometimes it's hard. Well, I do I'm lucky to have an intern with me, so she's really good, and she helps me out a lot when we're home. So sometimes I really need to get a return to play and on the field. So sometimes she has the iPad. If we're going live, she will have the iPad and help me out cutting the drills and making sure we have the times for the drills and stuff like that. I use her a lot for also helping me with videos. I really like to record most of my sessions in terms of like the warm-ups, the max speed progressions that I do with them, because I think that I like to analyze especially slow motion videos to really make sure how their mechanics are. So the first week that I was here, I already recorded our max speed sessions, and I noticed that they needed some improvement in different parts of their running mechanics. So I started a progression. Every week you do max speed. I have some different progressions that I do with them to make sure they improve that form, and it's been really good, and the video feedback is really good, not only for me but also for them. I try to show them, okay, this is the first week that we did, and I know that's boring to do those progressions, those ankling drills, but look at how much you guys improved, and they notice, and again, that's the good, some good feedback to get their buy-in. Again, they see it, they see the improvements, and they still want to do it. They want to continue to do that. So GPS, I always do the reports. I'm pretty new to this part, like with the sports science, like numbers wise. I've always been really big on movement and with my eyes, and I really like the subjective data, the RPEs. That's what I worked in the past because I didn't have the budget on with the team that I worked in the past. So I had to be creative on that. So my first really exposure to the data part of it was when I started working with the U.S. soccer youth national teams as a sports scientist, because that's literally the first time that they went in depth, and then kind of like I started seeing some trends. What am I looking for? What metrics am I looking for? So I have been improving in that part of my coaching, and I have amazing mentors that help me through it with the data. So slowly but surely, I'm kind of getting more comfortable knowing the players' loads, that what player has a bigger load but is able to accept that load really well compared to others, and then trying to see what we're looking for weekly in terms of high speed running exposures. Then that way we periodize those kind of things. So GPS data, I try to do that, and then strength in the gym. We have 2 sessions a week normally. One big session, one good session, and then a pre-game session, more like a power. It's a little bit to like prime the nervous system. So that's kind of my role within the club as of right now.
And do you have strict standards that you want the players to achieve with the metrics that you do record, like the GPS? Is there things that you're looking for them to hit before you allow them to return to play after an injury?
Yeah, so especially with the return to play, and again, that's for me as of right now. I'm still getting used to the players, getting used to their weekly loads and what am I looking for. But for me, I work together with the AT in terms of, okay, so what normally they hit in the game, and then work kind of backwards from that, and make sure if they are returning to play, depending on the injury. So start working high-speed running at lower percentages, linear, and then deceleration, making sure they're able to decelerate without a problem, and you start implementing change of directions and more specific ball work as they progress. So I've always worked. I've worked a lot with Tim Gabbett's research in terms of acute chronic ratio. I used RPEs in the past. So right now I'm getting used to using the same for high speed running and total distance. So the idea is I want to progress from week to week. I don't want huge spikes in loads more than 10% from week to week. And, making sure, I think for me, I try not to make it complex, because especially with data. So I want to say, okay, so if I have the game load and I work backwards from there and from that, and and prepare for the worst case scenario, and making sure they get that exposure during the week and progressively getting that exposure so they are ready for the worst case scenario, which is game situations. Then we'll be fine. So we try to be really cautious on in terms of the load, the high speed running, especially with the return to play. I'm really big on the movement mechanics, making sure movement patterns and motor control is for me is one of the biggest things after return to play. Not even after for return to play, but we see a lot of players that struggle with motor control and slowing things down, and so that's kind of my focus on a lot of my warm-ups, and in the gym sessions I really slow them down, really picky with movement, so making sure they don't just go through the motions or they go too fast. I've been trying to get them sometime barefoot in the gym, because I've just been seeing a lot of a trend with the professional players, that the lack of big toe mobility, just stiffness on the ankles and hips. So we started implementing just doing some exercise barefoot, and especially single leg exercises, getting split squat positions barefoot as far as big toe mobility. And they all understand that some of them lack that. So they ask me, like, but why does it matter? Like, we run with cleats, so why are we doing barefoot? So it's just getting them to understand, wow, you need your big toes for the producing force and accelerating. So if you don't get that mobility, you're going to find elsewhere that it's probably not supposed to do the job that you want it to do. So they just start compensating. So again, once I educate them and they know, it's way better. Like today, we went to a gym, and I don't know, the majority of the players asked, can I take my shoes off? And I'm like, yeah. So it's kind of like, it's good for me, because I feel like they're literally buying into what I'm trying to do, and they're understanding that it has value. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to see that.
I'm going to come back to your, you mentioned warm-ups. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. Just on the same thread of talking about movement quality, I've actually noticed that there's a bit of a trend on some of the work you've showcased online, talking about movement qualities. Could you just elaborate on kind of what key pieces you're looking at, and kind of what it means to you, what you're looking into with these athletes?
Yeah, so for me, it's I think because I worked so much with the youth in the past, and that's the biggest thing that I've seen in the youth, especially in this generation, is the lack of motor control, and then the neuromuscular coordination. And once I started working with a little bit older athletes and professionals, I just realized that that's literally the same case that I've been seeing. Is just, you have players that are pretty athletic, and but they still, I always say, the athletes are masters of compensation. So like, it's crazy how much they're able to do what they need to do, but sometimes not the most efficient way. So the biggest thing for me, especially in warm-ups, it's really easy to kind of go through the motions, especially in warm-ups and those things that you do every day. So I try to be, try not to be too much, like, too boring with the warm-ups. So I always bring a fun component to it. I'm really big on the cognitive side too. So being able to train the athletes, the brain, reactive, because I've been seeing like they struggle a little bit with that, just decision making and how quick they can react. And if you think about it, the game of soccer, that's all about decision making. How quickly can you switch from one movement to the other? You accelerate and you have to decelerate and change direction really fast. So how can they better use their bodies in an efficient way to make that happen? So in a safer way too, because I see a lot of times when I did some slow motion videos, I could see that there are big compensations in terms of for max speed, just reaching through it, just reaching too much horizontal instead of cycling in more like a vertical position for max speed. So in my mind, it's like, okay, we need to hit those max speed runs every week, the high speed running, right? Because it's such a big thing that every club is doing now, and the research on the high speed running. So in my mind, is like, okay, if they need to hit above 90% of their max speed and they're doing it in not good mechanics, so why are we really doing it just for doing it? Because you're doing for hamstring health, and make your hamstrings resilient. So you better have a good mechanics of max speed to achieve that. So that's kind of why I started doing those progressions on max speed day. So we really take the time to do ankling drills, and we do educating the athletes that you want your posture up vertical, and then you cycle like that. So slowly they're getting better and better each and every week. The same with prehab and warm-ups. Like everything that I do in the warm-ups, I'm picky, and I tell them, like, you don't want to go through the motions. You want to do it really, really well. I always do some bungee work, acceleration, crossover, deceleration, specifically for motor control and neuromuscular control, because I think that's itself, it's an injury prevention. Being able to move their bodies faster, change direction faster, efficiently, and brain connected to muscles. I think that's the biggest thing for me. So.
And do your warm-ups have progressions throughout the season, or do you have a strategy for the year about how you want them to change over time?
Well, so I try to, so for example, in max speed, I try to get some acceleration mechanics with the bungees to kind of teach them how to create forces and, get them to get a good rhythm in their position. My cognitive part of the warm-up always changes. And it's funny because they used to struggle in the beginning. I used to just throw some math equations that they have to react to the specific result of the math equation, and then collar drills. So that I've been progressing that because they're getting better at it. Before it was just like I would do a drill, they had to run to red. It would take them forever to run to the red cone or whatever. So now I'm having to kind of be more creative because their brains are getting better and quicker on kind of reacting to those kind of stimulus. But again, I always try to make it really fun for them. So I'm like, okay, what do I need to get from the session? So if I need to get some change of directions, how can I make that as a competition? Even for max speed, I noticed that sometimes they're not hitting the above 90%. And that's because, fair to them, is because they were really paying attention to the movement, the movement mechanics that we've been training, which is great. For me, it was like, okay, it's not like they're slower, but they're really spending more time paying attention. You can really see on videos. So what I do is I progress them through those progressions and those drills for max speed, and then at the end, the last one, I do a competition. And sometimes they start on their back. Sometimes they, just to get them to have fun with it, and it's just not just running for running's sake.
Break up the monotony.
Exactly. They don't like that. So I try to be really creative. Definitely, as soon as they're getting better with specific movement or specific competencies, then I try to do more complex stuff in the warm-up. And that means adding chaos to it. For me, it's just like, okay, can you do that in a simple way of just progressions? And then once you're comfortable with that, then now I'm going to add chaos, and I want to see how you really react to it. And those are the really good and fun videos to pay attention to when we get them to do a drill that you add chaos, that they have to react to it. And then you do a slow motion and you see that their movement is amazing, even in chaos environments. And that's what you want. You want them in the game, you want them to really control their bodies to do what they need to do in a safe way. So that's kind of my train of thought when I'm doing those things.
And just people working outside of professional sport, what does this chaos look like, and what are some examples of things that you implement to achieve this?
It's literally for me, the way I see it is like, okay, what are you trying to get from the session or from whatever you're doing? If you're working with youth or you're working with in the gym, it's like, okay, if you're trying to get them to, I don't know, run faster, whatever. So you take a slow motion video just so they can see how they're doing, and then you start doing whatever progressions you want, and then that can be, for me, I start isolating them on the wall. So like I put them on the wall to do wall drills, so they really understand how their posture should be. Once they understand that, then I go and add the bungee. Like, okay, add some movement, see how you're doing, and then add the speed. So can you do that, the same thing, but adding some speed to it? So instead of you doing marches, you're going to do some skips. After you do some skips, you're going to do more of like a sprint in place to sprint with the bungees, but I want you to keep focusing on that mechanics. And then once they do a good job with that, then how can you make it fun? Because I mean, it doesn't matter if you're in professional world, if you're in with the kids world or the gym world, everybody loves competition and everybody loves kind of different things and not get boring with the same exercise. So literally the chaos can be adding, I don't know, a reaction to the drill. So I always like the math equations, or I like to add the different cones and just mess with their minds. It's like, hey, I'm going to say the collar, but you cannot really react to the collar. You need to react to the number that's associated with the collar. So things like that's going to really challenge them cognitively and make a little bit more interesting for them.
So it's layering up that complexity and the competitive side of it as well.
Exactly. The competitive side for me is the biggest thing, especially I feel like with everybody loves some competition. So.
And you've mentioned you get the athletes barefoot a lot, and you look at big toe mobility. Is there any other qualities, as you've called it, that you're looking at around their body?
Yeah, so big toe mobility is a big one, and I think foot stability. I think that's huge. That I've been really following the work of Laura Landau, and who's an amazing performance coach here in the States. And he talks a lot about, how pronation, supination, you need those to, absorb forces and create forces, but it's the axis of pronation, excess of supination that can, hinder you. So a lot of the times I see knee valgus on an athlete, but a lot of the times us as coaches, we just focus on the knee and then we don't see the foot. And sometimes their foot, is the problem. Maybe they have excess pronation and that creates that knee valgus. So a lot of the times I just use a lot of in our gym sessions. I do at least one barefoot single leg stability drill, and that can be anything single leg. So we start doing this single leg RDL mobility, hip mobility. So you pretty much hold a med ball, you go do a single leg, and then once you're up, you just go around the bench. So you do like a circle with your hips through the bench. And I tell them, like, look at your feet right now. Like, look how much it's working and it's getting that stability. So a lot of the times, our players come to the gym with those shoes with high heels and like, okay, let's do single leg stuff barefoot so you can really feel your feet working. So I do a lot of that, single leg stability, barefoot. Big toe mobility for me is a big one. A lot of breathing. So breathing has been one of the things that I've been doing a lot with them because they just don't breathe enough, and they, even when I did the first session with them, they're like, oh my gosh, what are we doing? And just shutting your body up a little bit, they're not used to it. And once I started doing it in our recovery days, they loved it because I taught them some 3D breathing to be able to really expand and get air through in and out and just relax for a little because, especially in the professional world, there's so much pressure. So you need to be able to, relax a little bit. So breathing is something that's been big that I've been doing too. My mentor, Kelly Starrett, one of my mentors, he's really big on that too. And I did some courses with him in the past, and that's something that I really enjoyed doing it because it worked for me as an athlete. So for sure, breathing is another thing that we've been doing a lot with them.
Is it something that you formally try and assess in the athletes, or is it more of a kind of regenerative tool that you're using it for?
For now, it's more of a regeneration tool. I've been. That's something in the projects that I've been trying to put some stuff together in terms of creating a more football specific, soccer specific efficiency test, kind of like the FMS, but kind of really specific to the things that I've been seeing more, like big toe mobility, how to create a test that can assess those big things and actually create a list of correctives that go with that and make sure that it's objective and measurable. So that's one of the things that I've been, it's one of my projects for the next year to kind of put that together and make sure we have efficiency tests to kind of see where they are and look for things for exercise that can get them to the place that they're going to feel a little bit better in terms of movement.
And where can people receive updates from you, follow you? Where can people kind of track your progress and your career?
Yeah, so I try to be really active on Twitter and Instagram. So I posted a lot of the stuff that I do. So if you just put Ivi Casagrande, Ivi Casagrande, on Twitter and Instagram, or through email, I can give you my email, whoever wants to reach out for any specific, work that I've been doing. They can reach out there. I love talking to other coaches and learning from other coaches and helping out.
We can put that. We can put those links in the show notes as well, which will be on the website.
Awesome.
And is there any kind of resources that you'd recommend to listeners? This could be books, courses, websites, absolutely anything.
Yeah, there's so many. Well, if you're looking, and I'm going to use my mentors because that's how I built my own philosophy. So Ben Ashworth, a big mentor of mine, a friend. So amazing at shoulder stuff. That's the number one guy that I look for, shoulder stuff. So Ben Ashworth has a great Instagram, Athletic Shoulder, I believe. So Kelly Starrett, another mentor that really helped me to be the coach I am today and the coach that I'm striving to be. All his stuff, how to become a supple leopard, his mobility WOD. I try to get that mobility WOD every day because it's amazing. I use it a lot with my athletes. And then there's so many resources, but those two are the big ones that I use it almost every day.
No, that's great. Well, Ivi, thank you so much for giving up your time, especially amongst a busy schedule. And really appreciate insights you've given us, and we really look forward to hearing your news and involvements at Orlando Pride.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Andy.